Happy Mother's Day. I'm so happy to see all of you guys here this morning. So happy to celebrate with you. My mom is here, right here. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. As he said, I'm Amy, and we do have 4 children. So that's a big part of who I am right now, is being a mom. Not only do we have 4 children, I homeschool them too. So sometimes I feel like being a mom is kind of like my whole identity right now. It's kind of my day-to-day, everyday thing is being a mom. So I'm honored that I get to be the one to speak to you this morning. And this morning, we're going to spend our time in Psalm 90. So if you have a physical Bible, you can turn there. If you want to turn there on your phone, Psalm 90 is where we're going to be hanging out all morning. If you don't have one, don't worry. It's going to be up on the screens for you as well. But this psalm is interesting for a couple of reasons. It's special for a couple of reasons. It's actually the oldest psalm in the whole book of Psalms. So out of all 150 of them, this one is the oldest. And the reason for that is who it's written by. If you're familiar with the book of Psalms, you know that King David is the one who wrote most of the Psalms, all the songs and the poems we find in there. But this one's special because this one was written by Moses. This same Moses that, if you were here last week, Cameron talked about Moses and his life and his calling to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. That's what we know him for. So this is the author of the psalm that we're going to look at today. And most scholars, they estimate this psalm was written, they don't know exactly when, but it was either right before that 40-year period of wandering in the desert. It was either written like right before then or right after then. So either way, it's kind of like in the thick of Moses' life and ministry, he writes these words. And life and death is really the main theme of this psalm. The brevity and the transience of life are really the main ideas that we see here. I hope that isn't too much of a downer on this Mother's Day, all right? We're going to be talking about life and death. And some of you know this, but we actually live next door to a cemetery. And so I can honestly say, I love our neighbors. They're so quiet. They never cause any trouble. It's wonderful living by them. But that's what I see when I look out my window every single day. When I drink my coffee and read, I see tombstones. And when I go outside, my kids and I go for a walk. We walk around the cemetery. They ride their bikes around the cemetery. It's a really normal part of my life because we've lived there for quite a while, so I'm just used to seeing it every single day. You know, I've read the names and the messages on the tombstones probably hundreds of times, and it's kind of just become normal to me. Like sometimes people are freaked out, like, oh, I wouldn't want to live there, but we're just used to it. It's just normal to us. But every once in a while, it will strike me because I'll look out and I'll see that they're digging a new spot in the cemetery. Or I'll see that a funeral is going on in the cemetery. Or I'll see that same car that I see almost every day coming to visit someone that they love and they miss. And so every once in a while, it'll strike me, life is so fragile. It doesn't seem to last very long. It's here and then it's gone. And I'm reminded when I look out and I see that one day that's where I'll be. One day that's where you'll be. We'll be buried just like that. And all that's left to represent our lives is just going to be that spot in the ground. Maybe a stone with some writing on it. That's all that will be left to represent our lives. So as humans, life is this journey from birth to death. As believers in Jesus, life is a journey from earth to heaven. And it may seem like all of us sit in really different spots this morning. I know that in this room we have teenagers, we have middle-aged, we have elderly people. It might think, oh man, we're all at such different spots on the journey. But really, we're all in the same spot because we're all somewhere in the middle. All of us are somewhere between birth and death, between earth and eternity. And the truth is that none of us know how many days or years we have left. None of us are promised tomorrow. We don't know what the future holds for us. We're just simply on this journey. And so Moses is on this journey as well. And in this psalm, he shares like some of his perspectives on life and on God. And so I want to read you this psalm this morning. Starting in verse 1, He says, Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You return man to dust and say, return, O children of man. For 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. You sweep them away as with a flood. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. For we are brought to an end by your anger. By your wrath we are dismayed. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. For all our days pass away under your wrath. We bring our years to an end like a sigh. So Moses is the author of this psalm, but Moses is not the subject of this psalm. The subject of the psalm is Moses' God. And as we read these first few verses, we find out right away that this God is very unlike us as humans. We see that this God is big, we are small. This God is infinite, right? It says from everlasting to everlasting, he is God. We are finite. This God is unlimited. We are limited. This God is timeless and ageless, right? It says that he was there before the mountains were formed. It says 1,000 years is like a day to him. He was there throughout all generations. And then we are limited by time and by our age. It compares our lives to like a blade of grass that springs up in the morning and by evening it withers away. That's what our lives are like, and yet God remains. So it's important to us to know who Moses is talking to in this psalm, because he's not just talking to himself. He's not just talking to the people he's leading. He's directing these words at God. And Moses prays 3 things in this psalm. And I think that by looking at his words, we can gain wisdom for our lives. And then also we can pray the same things that Moses prays over our own lives as well. He continues in verse 10 through 12. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength 80. Yet their span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you? So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. So the first prayer that Moses prays that I wanted to point out to you today is teach us to number our days. And other translations say it this way: teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom. Now, if I was talking to you after service and you said, by the way, how old are you? And if I said 21,165 days, that would be weird, right? Because we don't count years, we don't count our days, we count our years. We number our years, not our days, and yet all of us have to live our lives one day at a time. So Moses, he prays, teach us to number our days. Well, what would be the point of numbering our days? When we number our days, we realize that there's a set amount. Even if we don't know how many there are, obviously none of us know, we can take a guess. But what happens when we number our days is we realize there is a set number. They won't go on forever. We don't know how many we'll have. We don't even know if we'll have tomorrow. All we really have is today. And I think it's important that we realize the key to a successful life is a lot of successful days. It's great to have goals and things you want to accomplish over years and decades. Obviously, we love talking about legacy here and what we can do in the long term. But it's important to think about what can we do today? Because today is really all we've got. It's not about reading the Bible in a year. It's about you reading the Bible today. It's not about you becoming a great Christian someday in the future. It's about you making choices and loving and serving God today. If you want successful years, you have to learn how to have successful days. How can you love God today? I know you probably want a great marriage one day, but how can you love and serve your spouse today? I think as mothers, I have this thought a lot. It's a daunting thought, right? When you look at these little children and you think, I'm supposed to make them into these capable, fully functioning adults. Like for me, I have 4 of them. Like, how am I going to make these into fully functioning adults? And not only that, but if you're a Christian, the goal is that not only would they be capable adults, but that they would love and serve Jesus. And it can be just this overwhelming feeling like, how am I going to do this? But it starts with today. Love them today. Point them to Jesus today. Pray for them today. Today is really all we've got. James, the brother of Jesus, says this in James 4:13 through 14. He says, "Look here, you who say, today or tomorrow, we're going to a certain town and we'll stay there a year. We will do business there and make a profit. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, then it's gone." That's the picture that we're given of our lives. It's like that morning fog. It's here and then it's gone. Life is brief and it goes by fast. I found that going anywhere with 4 small blonde children is a spectacle today. I just have to be prepared. Like if I take them to the grocery store, if we go out to eat, like I'm gonna talk to several people. They're gonna come up and have a conversation with us. If I go to Walmart, like I need a whole afternoon because there's gonna be a ton of like little old ladies coming up to us and talking to us. But one of the things I hear the most often, almost every time I go out with them, is someone will look at me and say, "Enjoy it. It goes by so fast." And I believe them. I really do. I think all of us realize this, but there's something that happens when you watch a human age before your eyes. When you watch a child grow, it's like your brain can't compute what's happening. They grow a little bit every day. And then you look at them, whether they're an adult or they're younger, and you think, what happened? Like you were just a baby yesterday. How did that happen? How did you grow so fast? Oftentimes it doesn't seem right to us, right? It doesn't seem right that babies grow up so fast. And it doesn't seem right if you've ever lost someone and you felt like it was too early. You didn't get enough time with them. It doesn't seem right to us. It seems like we never have enough time. And the reason for that, I believe, is found in Ecclesiastes 3:11. It says, "He has planted eternity in the human heart." And I believe the reason that we feel that way is because we aren't just humans. We aren't just bodies. You and I are eternal souls. And it said that God has planted eternity in our hearts. This life seems so short. It seems so brief because it is. In light of eternity, this life is just a breath. It's just a few minutes compared to the next life. Life is brief. So Moses prays, "Teach us to number our days." Don't just count your days, make your days count. In verse 13, he continues, he says, "Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, and for as many years as we have seen evil." So the second prayer that Moses prays is satisfy us. I don't know if you've noticed this, but we as humans are deeply dissatisfied creatures. And we are on this constant mission to find something that will satisfy us. Another job, another vacation, another outfit, another drink, another experience, something to satisfy us. But it never seems to work. And I know there are people here today and you think, no, it's just this one thing. If I just had that, then I would be satisfied. If I could just get married, then I would be satisfied. If I could just make this amount of money per year, then I would be satisfied. But anything you look to for satisfaction outside of a relationship with Jesus will leave you dissatisfied. You might find some things to satisfy your body, but you'll never find something that's going to satisfy your soul. And Moses, he prays that, satisfy us with your love, because he knows that God's love is the only thing that can satisfy our souls. When Jesus was here on earth, he referred to this as living water. And there's this story that happens in John 4 where Jesus goes and he sits down next to a well and he's thirsty. And a woman comes and she starts to get water and he asks her to get him some water as well. And she says, "Why are you asking me for a drink?" She was a Samaritan woman. Usually Jewish men didn't talk to Samaritan women. And he doesn't even answer her question. He just says, "If you knew who I was, and if you knew what God had for you, you would ask me for a drink, and I would give you living water." And she's like, "You don't even have like a rope or a bucket. What are you talking about?" She's super confused. And Jesus isn't talking about physical water anymore. He's talking about something else. He says this in John 4:13-14. Jesus replied, "Anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life." See, this woman was talking about physical water, right? She was thirsty. She needed a drink. But then she meets Jesus, and he doesn't want to just give her a drink of water. He doesn't want to just meet her physical need. He wants to meet her spiritual need. And just like this picture of us as humans and our physical need, right? We're thirsty, we crave a drink of water. The same is true about our souls. We have this feeling in our souls of craving something, of wanting a drink, right? Our souls are thirsty. And oftentimes we try to satisfy this feeling in our soul with physical things, with entertainment, with pleasure, with substances, but it doesn't work. None of these things satisfy us for very long. We have a spiritual longing that can only be satisfied when we meet Jesus, just as this woman did. So until you meet Jesus and get that living water, until you meet with the creator of the universe, God, and are met with his unfailing love, nothing in this world will satisfy you. His love is the only thing that will satisfy our souls. Even the best things in this life won't satisfy your soul. Success won't satisfy your soul. Marriage won't satisfy your soul. Motherhood won't satisfy your soul. It'll bring you fulfillment, it'll bring you purpose, but it won't truly satisfy you. Only Jesus can do that. And a lot of you know this, right? A lot of us here have experienced this, and that's why we get so excited when we're here. Maybe you're visiting with us today, and you're like, "Oh man, those people were really excited during worship. Like, that was weird." This is why we get so excited, because we've experienced that satisfaction that we were looking for our whole lives. And in Jesus, we found it. Our souls have been satisfied. And that's why we get so excited. That's why we want you to be here, and we want to celebrate that with you. And Moses knew God. He had experienced God's love. He was doing exactly what God had called him to do, and yet he asked God again, "Satisfy us with your love." Life is difficult. Moses definitely knew this. Moses' life was difficult. His calling, his journey in life was not an easy one. He needed God's love to satisfy him again. He asked God to give him joy and to give him gladness again. So if you've never experienced a relationship with Jesus, he's the satisfaction that your soul is looking for. But for those of us today who have experienced that relationship, you may just need to ask God to satisfy you again. When was the last time you asked God for joy, that you asked God for gladness? Moses did, and I think that we can do that too. He continues in verse 16. This is the very last part of the psalm. He says, "Let your work be shown to your servants, and your glorious power to their children. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us." Yes, establish the work of our hands. So life is brief, and life is difficult. Does anything we do in this life really matter? We're all going to be in that cemetery one day, right? So is it all just pointless? Should we just spend our days doing what makes us happy, just trying to get the most out of these brief few years that we have here on earth? I'm sure we've all had moments where we feel like, man, it just all seems kind of pointless. Like you're just born and you go to school and you try to learn some things so you can get a job and make some money so you can have a house and a car, and then you just have to spend all your years paying for that house and car, and they just break down and you fix the house and car, but it's all gonna burn, it's all gonna rot, and none of it will last anyway. Then we're gonna die and just be forgotten. Like, is all of this just pointless? And I can imagine that Moses experienced these same feelings in his life. It's kind of just the human experience, especially him. He sacrificed his life. He spent his time serving a group of ungrateful people who rarely appreciated him. They didn't listen to him. They disobeyed God. They constantly complained. And this group of people was estimated to be about 2 million. So I can't even imagine what Moses went through trying to lead these people. I mean, Cameron gets stressed out trying to lead 500 of you guys. Moses was leading 2 million. I cannot even imagine. And I'm sure Moses felt at times that his work was pointless. So he prays this prayer. He says, "Establish the work of our hands." And what that phrase is translated to in other versions is, "Make our efforts successful." The reason a lot of us, we feel like the work we do is pointless is really because it is. A lot of what we spend our time and energy on, it won't matter past this life. It won't matter in eternity. No matter how many followers you get, no matter how much money you make, no matter how many great experiences you have, all of it will end. All of it will rot. All of it will come to a time when it no longer matters. And we can do nothing really of eternal significance in our own ability in this life. But there is a way we can use our brief lives to count for something, even to affect eternity. The secret to making sure your life is not a waste is by investing your life into God's work. When His work and your work become the same work, God will bless the work of your hands when the work of your hands is His work. So you might say, well, Amy, what is God's work? What does that even mean? I like the way Hudson Taylor said it. He's a famous missionary. He says, God's work is not man working for God. It is God's own work, though often wrought through man's hands. And we see this all throughout the Bible, right? God uses us, humans, to accomplish His work here on earth. He uses us to spread the gospel, to serve and love other people, to build the local church. I like how Cameron has said it in the past. He said, God's work is when you find what God is doing and you join it. The only thing that will cross over from this life to the next life is people. So most of God's work, it's focused on other people, on other eternal souls, making sure that they know the gospel, that they know that Jesus paid the price for them to be saved, and that they can also join Him in eternity. When we love people, serve people, share the gospel, pray for people, we're doing God's work. Investing your life in God's work is the way to find true significance in this life. It may seem insignificant. You're just inviting a neighbor to church. You're just having a conversation with your coworker. You're just trying to teach your children about Jesus, and it seems like they're not listening anyway and they're not paying attention. It can seem like it's insignificant, but in reality, it's the only thing that is significant. Charles Thomas Studd, he was a Christian missionary, and he was born in England in 1860 to a very wealthy family. He went to college. He was very talented. He was really talented in the sport of cricket, which we're not familiar with much over here, but he was like the Michael Jordan of cricket in his day, so very talented. And so many people just expected that he was going to go on and be a success, to chase fame and become a famous cricket player. But while he was in college, he gave his life to Jesus. And then his whole life changed. He gave up his athletic career to actually be a missionary and to spread the gospel in China, in India, and Africa. And he wrote a very famous poem. Some of you might be familiar with it. I want to read you just a section of it today, and you can look up the whole thing if you want to read the whole thing. But it's called "Only One Life Will Soon Be Past." It says, "Two little lines I heard one day, traveling along life's busy way, bringing conviction to my heart, and from my mind would not depart. Only one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. Only one life, yes, only one. Soon will its fleeting hours be done. Then in that day my Lord to meet and stand before his judgment seat. Only one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. Oh, let my love with fervor burn, and from the world now let me turn, living for thee and thee alone, bringing thee pleasure on thy throne. Only one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. And when I'm dying, how happy I'll be if the lamp of my life has burned out for thee." Only the work that we do for God will last. You might say, "So you're saying only the work I do for God is going to last? That's it? If that's the case, I would have to change my whole life around in order to do something that matters." Yes, exactly. That's why people like Charles Studd would change the entire trajectory of his life. And when you realize that, when you realize the work of God, reaching other peoples with the gospel, that's the only work that matters. It should change our lives. For most people, their life is a meaningless existence without eternal purpose. When we do God's work, the work we do will last. It'll go on to affect eternity. If you're here today and you're a mother, I just want to remind you that as you raise your children with the goal of them loving and serving Jesus, you are doing God's work. If you're a mom, if you're in the season of raising small kids like I am, you might think like, I wish I could do God's work, but I'm stuck taking care of these kids. Like, I want to do something great for God, but I'm stuck here. But don't miss the opportunity that's right in front of you. It's an enormous privilege to be entrusted with souls from God. And at the same time, it's an enormous responsibility to point them to Jesus. When I think about the work of our hands as mothers, there's so many things I think of, right? We hold our babies, we rock them, we change their diapers, we put Band-Aids on their boo-boos, we cut up their food into a million little pieces, we read books to them, we bathe them, we dress them, we comb their hair, we snuggle them and tickle them, we do their dishes, we do their laundry, we drive them places. Our work as mothers is vast. It's ongoing. It seems like it never comes to an end, right? At times it may feel mundane and unimportant. You may ask yourself, does any of this even matter? Like, is any of this of what I'm doing significant? But it is, because motherhood is God's work. We're raising these eternal souls. Everything you do matters. You bringing them to church matters. You teaching them about Jesus matters. You speaking life and faith and purpose over their calling matters. The prayers that you pray for your children matter. Every seemingly small thing we do to lead our children closer to Jesus, it can amount to this eternity shifting work. So Moses prays, establish the work of our hands. And when I read that verse a few months ago, I thought, that is my prayer for motherhood. That is the prayer that I pray over my children. God, establish the work of my hands. I'm trying. I'm doing my best. I'm giving it my all, but I can't make my children love Jesus. Even my best efforts fall short. I need God to make my efforts successful. Of course, it's Mother's Day, so it makes me think about my mom. And I think that her life is a great example of this. My mom was a single mom, and she took care of me and my brother and sister mostly on her own. And when I think about the work of her life, my mom has worked at Walmart for as long as I can remember. She's a super hard worker, and she always worked a lot to take care of us. And on the outside looking in, the world wouldn't consider her work very significant. But in God's eyes, the work that she did in her life was greatly significant, because she was the first one in my family to give her life to Jesus. And because of the work that she did to lead her children to Jesus, now I'm a Christian, and I'm raising my kids to love and serve Jesus. And my sister's a Christian, and she's raising her kids to love Jesus. And my brother's a Christian, and he's leading his kids to love Jesus. And our family line and legacy has been forever changed. She might not be famous here, and her work on earth might not seem very significant to the world, because she made God's work her work. What she did on this earth will last. It will have eternal impact. More people are going to be in heaven because of the work she did on this earth, the work to lead her children and grandchildren to Jesus. So only what's done for Christ will last. If you are a mother today, it's one of your greatest opportunities to do God's work. Don't lose sight of the significance of what you're doing. We only have one life, and really, we only have today. Life is brief, so Moses prays, "Teach us to number our days." Life is difficult, so Moses prays, "Satisfy us with your love." Our work feels pointless, so Moses prays, "Establish the work of our hands." And we can pray the same things over our lives today. Time and life is precious. Don't waste your time, and don't just spend your time. Invest your time into doing something that will outlive you. You only have one life. Use your years and days for His glory. Find what God is doing and join it. Do God's work. That's the only way to make our lives significant. Well, we're just about done, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to pray a special prayer over all the mothers that we have here today. And like Cameron said, we do honor the mothers in this place. If you're a mom, if you're a grandma, the work you do is so important. And us in the church, it's critical work, right? We have to build the next generation of people who are going to love Jesus and serve Jesus. The work that we do as mothers, it can impact eternity. But even our best efforts as mothers fall short. We need God to establish the work of our hands. We need Him to make our efforts successful. And so I'm going to pray for you, for all the moms here today, just that God would give you fresh strength and fresh courage. But just as a symbol of this, while I'm praying, I just want to invite you just to put your hands out like this and just imagine your work as a mother. Imagine your children, your grandchildren, everything you do represented in your hands. And I just want to pray that God would establish the work of our hands. I want to pray over every child, every grandchild that's represented here. And I want to pray that God would establish the work of our hands. Maybe you have young children, maybe you have adult children and grandchildren. I just want to pray that God would help you. So let's pray. God, you see our hands, and God, I pray specifically just for every mother, every grandmother in this room, for every child that's represented, all of our efforts. God, we're trying everything we do to point these children to Jesus. God, we just ask that you would make our efforts successful. We need your help. We can't do this on your own. So God, would you help us? We know the ultimate success is them loving you, them serving you. So God, I pray every single child represented in this place would have a relationship with you, that they would know your love, that they would be satisfied with your love. God, help us to mother for your glory. We know that it's the only work that's going to last. Bring fresh strength, bring fresh courage to mothers this morning. And God, I just pray over every single person in this room. God, teach us to number our days. We ask that you would satisfy us with your love. And God, would you make our efforts successful? In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.